My father brought home as a band and illegitimate daughter. She was like a blazing flame, vibrant, passionate, and entirely different from me. The sheltered greenhouse rose raised by rules and propriety. Father lavished all his affection on her. And several of my cousins willingly revolved around her, eagerly listening to her tales of the bustling streets and alleys. Even my fiancé, Darian, liked, though he often claimed she was wild and unruly, lacking proper manners, would, at every family dinner, find his gaze inadvertently drawn to her radiant presence. At our grand engagement banquet, he stood at the center of attention, improvising a performance of his most cherished original composition, Starry Day. It had once been a melody that belonged only to us. But now, his gentle, focused gaze bypassed me and landed squarely on her. Sitting in the corner. Even when the music concluded, he took off the blue dime and brooch heirloom of the Darian family, passed down through generations to the eldest daughter-in-law, and pinned it onto her collar. This shade of blue complements your spirit perfectly. I lowered my head, my fingers brushing silently over the dime and necklace he had just given me. Cold, luxurious, yet it bore no connection to his earlier promise to pluck the stars from the sky for me. It was as if he remembered her love for sky blue but had forgotten that I was allergic to diamonds. Whispers of astonishment and gossips whirled around me. I lifted my gaze, my voice calm and unruffled. Darian, we shall break off the engagement. His smile froze instantly, as though he had heard the most absurd joke. His voice rose, tinged with both anger and disbelief. Stella, you're going to ruin all these years of our relationship over a brooch? Yes. My response was soft as falling feathers, yet resolute. The moment my words fell, the noise of the banquet hall seemed to freeze. The champagne bubbles suspended in midair, the fake smiles on the guests' faces, and the myriad lights refracted from the crystal chandelier all halted in that 1 second. Darian stared at me in disbelief, his handsome features twisted with offended fury. Have you had your fun? Stop embarrassing yourself and come here. His command was delivered as if it were the most natural thing, condescending, charitable, as though I were a petulant child waiting for him to clean up the mess. Lillian rushed over, grabbing Darian's arm, her face twisted with panic and guilt. Darian, don't be angry with my sister. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have accepted such an expensive gift. She must have misunderstood. She hurried to undo the blue dime and brooch from her collar, her fingers trembling, her eyes filling with tears. Sister, I'm so sorry. I'll return it right away. Please don't be mad at Darian. She handed the brooch to me, her posture low, her voice choked with emotion, as if I were the villain here, the one bullying her. Around us, the murmurs turned into accusations aimed squarely at me. Stella, the eldest daughter of the family, is so petty, making things difficult for her newly returned sister. Yeah. Darian was only being kind, seeing how simply she dressed, just trying to add a little decoration. She's been spoiled, with no sense of the bigger picture. My father, Kenneth, stormed over, his face dark with fury, and hissed at me. Stella, stop this nonsense. Apologize to Darian. Several of my cousins also gathered around. Stella, Lillian has just returned. You should be more accommodating. Yes, what? It's just a brooch. What matters is Darian's goodwill. Each of them taught me a lesson, lecturing me on how to be gracious and understanding. Darian, gazing at Lillian's tear-filled eyes, protectively pulled her behind him and gently raped in the brooch on her. His movements were tender, but his voice, directed at me, was cold and steely as iron. Stella, I told you, this brooch suits her. If you keep causing trouble, you're disrespecting me, disrespecting the Darian family. He paused, then added with an air of superiority. Don't worry. When we marry, the Darian family will give you everything you're due. Stop acting like a petty, childish woman. He thought I was concerned about the value of the brooch. Lillian, hiding behind him, cast me a look of triumph, as if victorious, while still pleading. Sister, I'm truly sorry. I didn't know this brooch was passed down to the eldest daughter-in-law. Darian never told me. Her words ignited another round of gasps in the crowd. So not only was the brooch expensive, but it also held special significance. Darian had given the family heirloom, meant for the eldest daughter-in-law, to another woman at our engagement party. I had become the laughingstock of the evening. I looked at the pair before me, one fiercely protecting the other shrinking with feigned innocence, a match made in heaven. I repeated, calmly, having fulfilled my sigh. Each word deliberate. Darian, we shall break off the engagement. You dare. Darian was thoroughly enraged now. Watch me. I raised my hand and, under the astonished gaze of everyone, took off the diamond necklace he had just casually given me. Wherever the diamond had touched my skin, a rash had bloomed, small, painful, and itchy. I walked up to Lillian and stood before her. She flinched, her voice trembling as she whispered, "Sister." I didn't look at her. My eyes fixed instead on the blinding blue of the brooch pinned to her chest. Then how did I smiled. Before anyone could react, I tossed the valuable necklace into the champagne tower, where it splashed with a loud plop. The crowd fell silent. Since Darian thinks your spirit matches the legacy of the Darian family, I suppose this worthless necklace can be used to wash your feet. Stella, Darian, my father, and several cousins yelled in unison. The entire banquet hall exploded into chaos. I paid no attention to the tumult behind me and turned, stepping down from the elevated platform. One step at a time. With each step, I crushed the foolishness of the past 10 years beneath my feet. I returned to the Stella family. The living room was brightly lit. Father Kenneth sat in the main seat, his face so dark that it seemed as if it could drip water. Lillian sat beside him, her eyes red and swollen, quietly sobbing. Several cousins, along with their parents, my uncles and aunts, were also sitting on the sofas. Each of them wore a hostile expression, looking exactly like they were in a solemn interrogation. As soon as I entered the door, the teacup in Kenneth's hand crashed heavily to the floor, shattering into pieces. "Do you even know to come back? You've disgraced the entire Stella family." His roar was filled with overwhelming anger, so loud that it made one's eardrums ache. Lillian immediately stood up, grabbed his arm, and persuaded him sensibly. "Dad, don't be angry. It's all my fault. Please don't scold my sister." The more she said this, the angrier Kenneth became. He pointed a finger at me and scolded. "Look at how understanding your sister is. Now look at you. How did I teach you growing up? Decorum, dignity, gentleness, and obedience. Did you swallow it all up? Just over a small matter. Causing a scene at the engagement banquet. Where do you think you're putting the Darian family's face? Where do you think you're putting mine?" An uncle chimed in. "Stella, I'm not saying this to upset you, but Darian is such a fine young man, top-notch family background, impeccable character. You make a scene like this, and if the engagement falls through, where are you going to find a family like that again?" "Exactly." Lillian just got back. "You're the older sister. What's wrong with letting her have her way? Why do you have to compete and make yourself look so petty?" My aunt sneered, her voice thick with schadenfreude. I looked around at these so-called relatives, and every one of their faces read, "You are in the wrong." No one asked why. No one cared if I felt wronged. They only cared about the face of the Stella family and the benefits the Darian family could bring. My gaze swept over them, then returned to Kenneth. "Are you done? If you're done, I'll be going upstairs." "What attitude is that?" Kenneth was so furious he stood up. "Kneel down. Apologize to your sister. Then go apologize to the Darian family and Darian himself. Until he forgives you." Lillian quickly cried out. "Dad, please don't. Really, don't make her apologize. It was my fault. I'll move out tomorrow. I won't live here anymore. Then sister won't be angry with me." Her words, a retreat disguised as an advance, ignited everyone's fury. "Stella, how could you make your sister leave home? How could you be so heartless?" I couldn't be bothered to argue with them anymore and turned to go upstairs. Just then, the sound of a car engine came from the door, and the butler hurried in. "Sir, Darian is here." Darian strode in, still wearing the high-end suit from the banquet. though his tie was crooked. His expression cold and impatient. When he saw me, he ordered, "Stella, come with me." I stood still. He walked right up to me, lowering his voice so only the two of us could hear. "Stop making a scene. Come with me. I'll pretend today never happened." There was no apology in his voice, only condescending grace. I looked up at him, suddenly remembering our first meeting. It was also at a banquet. I was surrounded by a group of rich girls, mocking me for being too serious, too dull. It was he who walked over, rescued me, and then looked down at me and said, "Don't mind them. You're fine just the way you are." He was 18. I was 16. The starlight in his eyes had once been the brightest light in my entire youth. But now, that starry sky was covered by dark clouds. Seeing that I was unmoved, Darian's patience wore thin. He reached out to grab my wrist. I stepped back, avoiding him. His hand froze in midair, and his face dark and to the extreme. "Stella, do you really want to do this?" At just the right moment, Lillian walked over, holding a beautifully wrapped gift box. "Darian, don't be angry with my sister. Look, I prepared this gift for you. Just take it as me apologizing on behalf of my sister." She handed the gift box to Darian. He took it, and in front of me, opened it. Inside was a pair of exquisite cufflinks with sky blue gemstones, perfectly matching the color of his suit. He glanced at them and actually smiled. That was the first time I saw him smile tonight, but it was directed at Lillian. "You're thoughtful," he said, putting the cufflinks away before turning his gaze to me, the warmth in his eyes immediately returning to coldness. "Look at your sister. And then look at you. Stella, you really disappoint me." The wound in my chest, torn open before, was now salted once more. I looked at him, and suddenly felt a laugh bubbling up. "Darian, have you ever considered that maybe it's not I who disappoint you, but rather you who no longer deserve my expectations?" With that, I turned and walked up the stairs, shutting the door behind me, leaving all their accusations and insults outside. Just before the door slammed shut, I heard Lillian, her voice dinged with tears but still concealing a smugness, say, "Darian, it's all my fault. My sister wasn't like this before." Chapter 3. The rash on my neck worsened into a large area of allergy by late at night. Itched and hurt, as though countless tiny needles were pricking my skin, and breathing became difficult. I drove to the hospital alone and went to the emergency room. The doctor frowned when he saw my condition. "Such severe diamond allergy. Why are you still wearing a necklace? Was this a gift from your fiancé?" I didn't answer, only feeling bitter. Yes, a fiancé I had been dating for years, about to marry. Yet he didn't even remember I was allergic to the gift he had carefully chosen for me. While getting an IV drip, I leaned against the cold chair back, watching as the medicine dripped slowly. The phone was eerily silent. Darian didn't call, didn't text. Perhaps to him, I was just throwing a tantrum. Once I calmed down, I'd come running to him like all those other times, lowering my head and apologizing. But this time, I wouldn't. At 4 in the morning, I dragged my weary body back to my apartment. It was a small place I had bought 2 years ago with my prize money from a competition. Not large, but quiet, a safe haven just for me. I fell into a deep, exhausted sleep, only to be woken by a frantic ringing phone. It was Darian. I looked at his name flashing on the screen and hung up. He called again almost immediately. Persistent. I hung up once more and blocked his number. The world grew quiet. The rash on my neck had faded somewhat, but the marks were still visible. I opened my social media app, hoping to catch up on the latest design news. But a photo suddenly jumped into my view. It was posted by one of my cousins, tagged at the largest amusement park in the west of the city. In the photo, Darian and Lillian stood side by side, with a colorful carousel behind them. Lillian smiled brightly and innocently, holding a large cotton candy, wearing an adorable Mickey Mouse ear headband. Darian was looking at her sideways, and though his face showed no expression, there was a look in his eyes I had never seen before: indulgence. And on Lillian's collar, The blue dime and brooch sparkled in the light. The caption read, "Darian brought Lillian out to relax." Hoping someone would stop being so unreasonable. I stared at the photo for a long time. A lump of cotton seemed to block my chest, suffocating me. I remembered. I had once asked Darian to take me to this amusement park. It was for my 20th birthday. I told him I wanted to ride the carousel. How had he responded back then? He said, "Stella, how old are you? What's the point of such childish behavior? I'm busy. I don't have time to entertain your nonsense." It wasn't that he didn't have time, he simply didn't want to be with me. It wasn't that he disliked childishness, it was that he disliked me. I turned off my phone, stood up, fed up, and poured myself a glass of water. My hands trembled, spilling some of it. Looking at my pale face in the mirror, with red marks still visible on my neck, I suddenly laughed. "Stella, you're so foolish." That evening, an unfamiliar number called. I picked up, and it was Darian. His voice sounded impatient, tinged with anger. "Stella, are you done playing? Why did you block me? Is there something you need?" My voice was calm. His usual confidence seemed rattled by my cold response. And after a few seconds, he spoke again. "My parents asked me to check when you'll be coming home. They've already prepared everything and want to talk to your father about the details of our wedding." "No need." "What do you mean?" His tone rose. "I mean the engagement is off. The wedding is cancelled." I've been clear enough. There was a cold laugh on the other end of the line, full of disdain. "All this because of a brooch and a theme park. Stella? When did you become so unreasonable? Who do you think you're punishing? Without me? Without the Darian family? How long do you think the title of Miss Stella will carry you? This is my business. None of your concern." "Fine. Very well." His anger twisted into a mocking smile. "I'll give you 3 days to cool off. If you're still this ungrateful after 3 days, you'll face the consequences." The call ended abruptly, the harsh click echoing in my ear. I sat there listening to the dial tone, and I didn't feel a thing anymore. The greatest sorrow is the death of the heart. This, I think, evil, is what it feels like. I opened my laptop and began organizing my design portfolio. Since the greenhouse had broken, the rose would have to learn to root itself in the wild. The next day, as I was sketching designs in my studio, I received a call from the hospital. My physical exam report had come back. On the other end, the doctor's voice was serious. "Stella, there's an issue with your report. You should come in for a more detailed checkup as soon as possible." I sat in the hospital corridor, the report clenched tightly in my hand, my mind blank. The word "suspected early-stage stomach cancer" burned into my soul like a hot iron, making me tremble with fear. How could this be? I was so young. My phone rang again. It was Darian's mother. "Mrs. Darian." I took a deep breath, answered the call, and tried to make my voice sound normal. "Auntie. Stella. Dear. Mrs. Darian's voice was as gentle as ever. "I heard from Darian that you two had a fight? It's normal for couples to argue. Don't take it to heart. I've had the kitchen prepare your favorite bird's nest soup. Why don't you come home for dinner tonight with Darian?" I gripped the thin report so hard my knuckles turned white. "I'm sorry, Auntie, but I have other plans tonight. I can't make it." "What's more important than coming home for dinner?" "Stella, listen to Auntie. Darian's temper is a bit stubborn, but he cares about you. Please be more understanding of him. Okay? Understanding? How much more could I possibly understand? Should I tolerate him treating our years together as nothing? Should I tolerate him passing on the promises he made to me to another woman? Should I tolerate him being with another woman when I needed him the most? Auntie." My voice was soft but unwavering. "I'm mending things with Darian." I hung up before she could respond. I needed a quiet place to think about what I should do next. By some strange impulse, I drove to the new house Darian and I had planned to share. It was a spacious penthouse with a view, designed entirely by me. I used my fingerprint to open the door. But inside the entryway, there was a pair of high-heeled shoes that didn't belong to me, shiny and unmistakably Lillian's style. My heart sank. Laughter drifted from the living room. I walked over and saw Lillian sitting on the carpet in a loose white bathrobe. Her wet hair draped over her shoulders. Playing with a stuffed cat. I recognized the bathrobe, it was one I had bought for Darian. She looked up, startled for a moment. Then stood. A perfectly timed expression of confusion and innocence on her face. Sister. What are you doing here? Her voice wasn't loud, but it was enough to be heard by whoever was in the bedroom. I didn't respond to her. My eyes scanning the coffee table where an open cake box sat, along with 2 wine glasses. How did you end up here? I asked. My water heater broke. And Darian said this place was empty. So he let me stay here for a few days. Sister, Hathafe. Please don't misunderstand. We haven't done anything. She explained hurriedly. Her words more suspicious the more she tried to explain. I looked at her and suddenly felt exhausted. I didn't even have the strength to argue with her anymore. I just wanted to take what was mine and leave this suffocating place. My gaze landed on the glass cabinet in the corner of the living room, where a crystal music box was displayed. It was the one Darian had made for me on my 18th birthday. Unique in the world. He had told me that I was his starry day. The only star he could see during the day. I walked over and opened the cabinet, reaching for the music box. But suddenly, Lillian rushed over and stood in front of me. Sister. What are you doing? Move. No. She seemed as if her tail had been stepped on. Agitated. This is a gift from Darian to you. You can't just take it. Are you trying to use it to threaten him? Her words were absurdly laughable. I bypassed her and stretched out my hand to grab the music box. Just as my fingers were about to touch it, Lillian's arm swung out violently. I couldn't tell if it was accidental or deliberate. Bang! The sharp sound of glass breaking echoed through the room. The crystal music box crashed to the floor, shattering into countless fragments. The little ballerina inside rolled to my feet. Her porcelain head and body split clean apart. In that instant, my world broke with it. Lillian covered her mouth, gasping in feigned shock as tears welled instantly in her eyes. I'm sorry. Sister. I didn't mean to. I really didn't. Just then, the bedroom door opened. Darian stepped out, wearing the same robe as mine. His hair was still damp. The moment he saw the shattered pieces on the floor and me, his expression darkened. Lillian immediately threw herself into his arms, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. Brother Darian. I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I accidentally broke sister's music box. She must hate me now. He held her gently, murmuring comfort. But when he lifted his gaze to me, his eyes were filled with nothing but disgust and cold fury. Stella. Is this what you've become? You can't even tolerate her anymore? You had to drive her to this? He didn't ask a single question, he simply pronounced me guilty. My heart went cold. I didn't explain. Didn't cry. Didn't plead. I only crouched down, intending to pick up the broken ballerina. But Darian stepped forward and crushed it beneath his heel, grinding the last trace of sentiment into dust. Enough. He said flatly, picking up a document from the coffee table and throwing it before me. I didn't want things to get this ugly. Stella. This is the last of my patience. Sign it. Apologize to Lillian. And everything before this, well, call it even. I lowered my eyes to the document. The title, printed in bold black letters, stabbed at my vision, prenuptial agreement. The terms were brutal, leaving me with nothing. At the end of the document, a handwritten note in Darian's familiar script read, additionally, Miss Stella must issue a public written apology to Miss Lillian regarding the engagement banquet and subsequent behavior. I picked up the fountain pen he had so thoughtfully prepared, uncapped it slowly. Seeing my movement, he smirked, certain I would yield in the end. I didn't bother reading the dense clauses. I turned straight to the final page and drew a large, decisive X across the note demanding my apology. Then, let out a low sigh. In the blank space beside it, I wrote 2 words. The smirk froze on Darian's face the moment my pen left the paper. Chapter 5. Get out. Darian stared at the 2 words, pupils constricting in fury. Stella. Are you out of your mind? He snatched up the papers, crushed them in his fist, and hurled them at me. The wad of paper sliced past my cheek, sharp as a blade of wind. I didn't flinch. I simply rose to my feet, cast one last glance at the broken shards of crystal, and turned toward the door. "Stop right there." Darian's voice came through gritted teeth. "Did I say you could leave?" I kept walking. He caught up in a few long strides and seized my wrist, his grip so tight it felt like he was trying to crush my bones. "If you walk out that door, we're finished," he threatened. I finally turned to him, each word crisp and steady. "Darian, we were finished the moment you said calling off our engagement was just me throwing a tantrum. We were finished the moment you played Star Daylight, the piece that belonged only to me, for someone else. We were finished the moment you pinned the Darian family heirloom brooch on her chest. We were finished the moment you forgot I'm allergic to diamonds but remembered that she likes sky blue. And just now when you crushed it under your foot." I paused, a humorless smile touching my lips. "You buried the last piece of us yourself." His hand fell away. Shock flickered in his eyes, followed by a confusion so raw it almost looked like fear. He had never imagined I could speak to him this way. Perhaps, in his mind, I would always be that obedient, yielding girl who trailed quietly behind him as ever gentle Stella. I shook off his hand and walked out without a backward glance. The elevator doors slid shut behind me, just as a crash echoed from inside the apartment, followed by Lillian's frantic, tearful voice. None of it mattered anymore. I didn't go back to the Stella estate, nor to my apartment. Instead, I checked into a hotel downtown. I needed silence. Absolute, uninterrupted silence. The first thing I did was purge everything in my phone connected to Darian contacts. Photos, anniversary reminders deleted, one by one, until nothing remained. Then I called my lawyer. Ethan, it's me, Stella. I need you to draft an official statement dissolving my engagement, and handle all related legal matters." There was a brief pause before his professional tone returned. "Understood, Stella. Just tell me what you need. And one more thing," I added, gazing out the window at the city lights. "Contact the organizers of the Nova Design competition. I want to resume the entry plan I shelved before." When I hung up, it felt as though the heavy stone in my chest had finally begun to lift. Next came my illness. I booked an appointment with the city's top oncology specialist 3 days from now. Whatever the result, I needed to know. Until then, I refused to waste another ounce of emotion on anyone unworthy of it. The next morning, I checked out of the hotel and moved back into my small apartment. I cleaned it from top to bottom, throwing away every trace of the past. When I finally dropped the last bag of trash into the dumpster downstairs, a familiar Bentley pulled up before me. The window rolled down. It was my father, Kenneth. His expression was complicated anger, disappointment, and something like exhaustion. "Come home," he said. "This is my home," I replied. "Stella, stop being childish." His tone softened. "I know you've been hurt, but you and Darian, after all these years, you can't just end it like this. I'll talk to the Darian family myself. They owe you an explanation." "An explanation?" I laughed softly. "Do you mean more business partnerships, father? Or a higher dowry?" His face reddened. "Watch your tongue. I'm your father. Do you think I'd ever harm you?" "You wouldn't harm me," I said evenly. "You just never thought I mattered. In your eyes, the company's interests, the Stella family's reputation, even the feelings of an illegitimate daughter who just came back are all more important than mine. To you, my greatest value has always been marrying into the Darian family to add another brick to your business empire." I took a step back, meeting his stunned gaze with calm defiance. "Well, father, this brick has decided not to be part of your wall anymore." Kenneth was left speechless by my words. And after a long pause, he finally managed to squeeze out, You've really grown wings." "Fine, hadn't so still lad sigh. I'll say this once. If you dare break up with Darian, never come back to the Stella family again, I'll pretend you're no longer my daughter." He thought that would still be a threat. I looked at him calmly. "Fine." With that, I turned and went upstairs without a second glance. Back in the empty apartment, I closed the door and slid down against it, resting my back on the wood. At that moment, I finally felt an overwhelming exhaustion and sadness flood over me. I no longer had a home. Nor did I have a lover. Perhaps I didn't even have a future. Hugging my knees, I couldn't hold back the tears any longer. But I only cried for 10 minutes. Once the tears had stopped, I wiped my face dry, stood up, and walked into my studio. The moment I picked up the paintbrush, light returned to my world. In the days that followed, I kept myself extraordinarily busy. On one hand, I underwent various complicated medical tests. And on the other, I immersed myself fully in the Creation Star Competition's design project. My entry's theme was Nirvana. The inspiration came from broken crystals that, when reflecting sunlight, shone even more brilliantly than when whole lay beauty born from destruction and rebirth. I poured all my emotions into the design sketches, letting the pain, struggles, and despair of the past flow into every line and color. Meanwhile, Darian tried every possible way to contact me. He changed his phone number countless times, but I blocked them all. He sent mutual friends to act as intermediaries, but I politely refused. He even found my small apartment and waited for me downstairs the whole night. From my studio window, I saw him leaning against his car, the smoke from his cigarette flickering in the night air, his figure looking solitary and forlorn. But not for a moment did I waver. Late affection is as cheap as grass, especially when time may be running out for me. I had no intention of wasting it on pointless back and forths. On the other hand, the Stella family seemed to be going through a rough patch as well. Without the alliance with the Darian family, several of the major projects my father had negotiated were put on hold. As for Lillian, she seemed to be putting effort into playing the role of a suitable Stella substitute. I saw from my cousin's social media that she was imitating my old ways, wearing simple long dresses, learning tea ceremony, arranging flowers, even reading the obscure design books I used to enjoy. She frequently visited the Darian family, shopping and having tea with Darian's mother, making Darian's father smile. Darian also often took her to business events. To the public, it seemed that it was only a matter of time before the sec and miss of the Stella family replaced the eldest daughter and became the future daughter-in-law of the Darian family. Lillian probably thought the same. She sent me a photo of her with Darian at some gala, her arm linked with his, both of them smiling brightly. "Sister, look, Darian and I are doing great now. I know you're still angry, but love can't be forced. Darian says he now understands what kind of person is truly right for him. Oh, good luck with that. I hope you can secure your position soon." I replied, then blocked her as well. I didn't tell her that just the day before, Darian had sent me dozens of pitiful and ridiculous messages. "Stella, I was wrong. Please come back. Lillian is just a sister. Nothing more. Why aren't you answering my calls? What do you want me to do? I'll agree to anything. Just come back." Not a single message got a reply from me. He didn't understand what I wanted. He could never give me. And now that he wanted to give it, I didn't want it anymore. Half a month later, my test results came back. Fortunately, heading fulfilledly. It was just severe stomach ulcers and chronic gastritis that had led to precancerous changes. It wasn't the worst case scenario yet. The doctor said that with proper treatment and medication, along with emotional stability, I could make a full recovery. As I walked out of the hospital and looked at the bright sunlight overhead, I felt for the first time a real sense of being alive. And that same day, my entry for the Creation Star competition, titled Nirvana, passed the initial selection and made it to the finals. The finals would combine an offline exhibition with an online voting system. On the very first day my work was displayed, it caused quite a stir. Many people said that the broken, yet dazzling jewelry reflected a kind of power to rise from the ashes. One user named Deep voted for my piece hundreds of times every day without fail. I knew it was him. But I no longer felt any stirrings in my heart. The night before the finals, I received an unexpected phone call. It was Darian's mother. Her voice sounded worn out, tinged with tears. "Stella, please come to the hospital right away. Darian, Darian had an accident. When I arrived at the hospital, Darian's surgery had just ended. He was lying in a VIP room. His left leg in a cast. His face pale. His lips cracked. He looked disheveled and fragile. Darian's mother was sitting beside him, holding his hand, tears streaming down her face. Darian's father stood by the window, smoking one cigarette after another. When she saw me, Darian's mother immediately stood up, clutching my hand desperately. "Stella, you're finally here. Please look at Darian. He's hurt so badly." I pulled my hand away calmly and asked, "What did the doctor say?" "His left leg is fractured. And he has a concussion. The doctor says he needs to rest properly, or he'll suffer long-term effects." Darian's mother sobbed. "It's all my fault. If I hadn't forced him to apologize to you, he wouldn't have been distracted. And this wouldn't have happened." I glanced at the man on the bed, eyes closed, and felt no ripple in my heart. "Since the surgery was successful, I'll leave now." "Don't go." Darian's mother grabbed me tightly. "Stella, I'm begging you. Please don't be mad at Darian. He really cares about you. Before the accident, he was still calling out your name. Please stay and keep him company. All right?" I was about to refuse when the door to the room opened. Lillian entered, holding a thermos, her face full of concern. "Darian, how are you?" When she saw me, her expression shifted to one of shock, jealousy, had instilled my obsession, and a hint of guilt. "Sister, what are you doing here?" She quickly composed herself, walked to the bedside, and softly said to Darian, "Brother Darian, I made your favorite soup. Please have some while it's still hot." She said this as she reached out to support him. Darian, who had kept his eyes shut until now, suddenly opened them. He ignored Lillian, his deep eyes locking onto mine, filled with a complex swirl of emotions: pain, regret, and a hint of sickly obsession. "You're here." His voice was hoarse from weakness. "I came to see if you were dead yet." I responded flatly. Everyone in the room froze. Darian's eyes red and instantly, and he let out a self-deprecating laugh. "Not dead yet. I guess that's a disappointment for you." Lillian saw this and immediately began her performance. "Sister, how can you speak to Brother Darian like that? He's so badly hurt. And you can't even show him some compassion?" She turned to Darian's mother, complaining with a pitiful look. "Aunt, look at what sister is doing. Darian is hurt. And she's not even sad. She's saying things to hurt him." Darian's mother's face also darkened, and she looked at me with disappointment in her eyes. "Stella, how have you changed? Darian was in the accident because of you. You could at least comfort him. But instead, you're saying such heartless things." I looked at the people in the room and found it utterly laughable. He had the accident because he was driving under the influence and speeding. It had nothing to do with anyone else. The surveillance footage and the police report are clear on that. I paused, glancing at Lillian. "As for why I've become like this, perhaps you should ask him. Ask this Stella of yours what you all have done." Darian's body stiffened. He looked at me. His lips moved, but no words came out. Lillian's face went ashen. "Sister," you went on a little sigh. "What nonsense are you saying? I don't understand." "Don't understand?" I sneered, taking a stack of photos from my bag and slamming them onto her thermos. The photos scattered across the floor. Each one showed her in various intimate moments with different men, spanning from before her return to the present day. "Do you not understand these? You investigated me." Lillian's voice grew shrill. "I'm not that idle." I looked at Darian. "These photos were given to me by your best friend. He said he didn't want to see you being played by a woman like this. Losing everything, including your family fortune." Darian stared at the photos on the floor, his gaze moving between them and Lillian, the storm in his eyes capable of tearing everything apart. "Lillian, what is this? It's not true. Darian, please. Listen to me. She forged them. She's framing me." Lillian screamed, pointing hysterically at me. I couldn't be bothered with this farce anymore. "Darian, this is your family matter. You clean it up. And from now on, don't come bothering me." With that, I turned and walked away. But suddenly, Darian threw off the covers, ignoring his injuries as he struggled to get out of bed. Stella, don't leave. He moved too quickly, aggravating his wound, and fell off the bed in a mess. Darian. Brother Darian. The hospital room was thrown into chaos. I didn't look back. At the door, I paused but didn't turn around, leaving him with only a cold silhouette. By the way, I forgot to tell you. I won the Nova competition. My championship piece, Rebirth, will be released next month. Chapter 8. After I left the hospital, Darian's world turned upside down. His best friend, Leo, the one who had given me the photos, personally came to his hospital room and laid out Lillian's past in detail. It turned out that Lillian's private life abroad had been a mess, relying on different men for her own gain. When she returned to China, her closeness to the Stella family was not for any familial love, but because she had set her sights on Darian, hoping to secure him as her prize. The charming, innocent image she projected was all a carefully crafted facade. Leo even discovered that, on the day of my engagement party, Lillian had purposely spilled water in the hallway I was passing through, hoping to embarrass me in front of everyone. But the waiters had cleaned it up in time. And Darian? He had been the most foolish, yet crucial, pawn in her scheme. Darian, I told you before that something was off about her. But you refused to believe me. Leo threw a stack of even more detailed documents onto Darian's bed. Take a look for yourself. While she's been with you, she's been keeping in touch with other rich heirs. The brooch you gave her? She immediately resold it on a second-hand luxury site for 8 figures. Darian looked at the evidence, his face draining of color. The pure, innocent love he had believed in was nothing more than a well-disguised venomous snake. For this snake, the snake, he had pushed away the one true star in his life. He remembered the rash on my neck when I had taken off the necklace, the dead look in my eyes when I had stared at the shattered music box. He remembered my words, "You buried the last chance yourself." His heart tight and as though gripped by an invisible hand. The pain so sharp it left him gasping for air. Every foolish thing he had done, every reckless word he had spoken, now felt like knives, tearing him apart. He had Lillian thrown out, no matter how she cried or begged. Then, what on a low sigh, he started frantically searching for me. But I had already changed my phone number, moved out of my old apartment, and even set up visitor restrictions at my studio. He couldn't find me. He could only see my news through financial reports and design magazines. New designer Stella wins the Nova Award. Rebirth collection receives rave reviews. Rebirth jewelry collection sells out in 3 minutes. Breaking industry records. Exclusive interview with Stella, my designs are born for Rebirth. In the photos, I was confident, composed, and radiating brilliance. That brilliance no longer belonged to him. He began drinking heavily, unable to sleep through the nights, and his leg wound healed very slowly. He couldn't focus on business, causing several important projects to fail, and the Darian family stock prices plunged. His father, furious, scolded him in the hospital room, but Darian remained silent, not speaking a word, until a month later, when the Rebirth collection was officially launched. On the day of the press conference, I stood in a black gown, under the spotlight, receiving applause and praise from everyone. Around my neck was the centerpiece necklace from the Rebirth collection, made of countless tiny diamonds and platinum, reformed into a butterfly poised to fly. Resting on the butterfly's wings was a deep blue gemstone, not a diamond, but a tanzanite. It symbolized hope and rebirth. In the middle of the press conference, a sudden stir came from the back door of the venue. Darian, leaning on a cane, broke past the security and hobbled towards me. He had lost a lot of weight, stubble sprouting on his chin, his expensive suit hanging loosely on his frame. All eyes in the room were on him. He ignored everyone's gaze, his eyes fixed solely on me. He reached the stage and looked up at me, his eyes red-rimmed, his voice hoarse. "Stella." My assistant and security immediately stepped forward to try and stop him. I raised a hand, signaling them to step back. From my elevated position, I looked down at him, the man who had once been able to stir every emotion in me. Now, all I felt was calm. Darian. If you're here to congratulate me, thank you. If you're here to cause a scene, then I'm sorry. But the security fees today will be billed to the Darian family group. My voice echoed clearly through the microphone, reaching every corner of the room. He staggered, as though the words struck him like a physical blow. Stella. I just want to see you. He mumbled, his voice thick with emotion. Stella. I know I was wrong. I found out everything. Lillian lied to me. I'm the bastard. I was blind. Please. Give me one more chance. He bowed his head in front of all the media and guests, begging me. I stared at him, and then let out a low sigh. Unexpectedly, I smiled. Chance? I picked up the microphone and spoke slowly, addressing not only him but also the entire room. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, I'd like to take this opportunity to announce something. Starting today, my personal brand Starlight will permanently refuse any form of commercial cooperation with the Darian family group or any of its subsidiaries. The reason is simple, I said, watching Darian's face turn an ashen white. Because I find it dirty. My words landed like a deep water bomb in a calm lake. The entire press conference fell silent, followed by the frenetic flashes of cameras and the reporters' suppressed gasps. The words "find it dirty" were like dragging the Darian family group's reputation through the mud. Darian, cut in and session, leaning on his cane, stood at the bottom of the stage, his body swaying as though he could barely stand. The face that had once been impervious and proud now bore only humiliation and despair. Stella. You can't do this to me. His voice was weak, barely audible, full of pleading. But I couldn't be bothered to even spare him a glance. I turned to the media below, flashing a standard, detached smile. The press conference will continue. Security quickly stepped in and escorted the disoriented Darian out of the venue. This brief interruption didn't affect my press conference in the slightest. In fact, it propelled my brand Starlight and the Nirvana series to viral success across the internet in a much more dramatic fashion. Emerging designer tears up XV8. I find it dirty. Starlight never cooperates. These trending hashtags firmly bound my name with Darian's. This time, however, I was the one standing at the pinnacle, hailed by countless people as the independent woman. So cool, and so strong. And he, Easy, became the laughingstock. The worst CEO of the year. The stock price of the Darian family group plummeted to its lowest point in years. After that, Darian completely disappeared from the public eye. I heard he had worsened his leg injury and was forcefully sent to a foreign rehabilitation center by Darian's father. Meanwhile, the Stella family was thrown into utter chaos. After Lillian's scandal broke, my father Kenneth immediately distanced himself from her, throwing her out of the house and publicly announcing their severed father-daughter relationship. The fire, which he had once pampered so dearly, was now discarded like trash. Kenneth called me several times, pleading for my forgiveness, saying he had been foolish and hoped I would come back home. He promised that everything in the Stella family would be mine in the future. I responded only with, Kenneth, I've already told you, I don't have a home. Then, let out a low sigh. I blocked all his contact information. As for those uncles, aunts, and and cousins who once criticized me for being petty, they now wore a different face. They said people to tell me that they had always seen through Lillian, that she wasn't a good person, and praised me for being able to discern right from wrong. I found it all revolting. Finally, heading to Feldman session, my life was completely peaceful. I poured all my energy into my career. Under my management, Starlight quickly became one of the top independent designer brands in the country. No longer was I the fragile rose that needed to depend on a family or a man. I built for myself an entire garden that could not be shattered. 1 year later, I held my first overseas solo fashion show in Paris. After the show, I received a call from Leo. His voice sounded hesitant. Stella. Congratulations. The show was a huge success. Thank you. Well, There's something I'm not sure whether I should tell you. Go ahead. Darian. He's back. Leo sighed. He's had a tough year. His leg injury has worsened, and it hurts on rainy days. His company. Well, let's just say he's lost everything. He's now just standing outside the old Stella family house where you used to live. He refuses to listen to anyone. Like a madman. I was silent for a moment. Leo. Thank you for telling me. But what does this have to do with me? There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. After hanging up, I walked alone to the banks of the Seine. The evening breeze tousled my hair, and the Paris skyline shimmered like a river of stars. My phone vibrated an urgent news notification. Former Darian family group CEO Darian was involved in an accident outside the old Stella family house. It is suspected that he was mentally disoriented, resulting in a car collision. He is currently in critical condition and undergoing emergency treatment. I looked at the headline, expressionless, and turned off my phone. Just then, my assistant approached, handing me a cup of hot cocoa. Mr. Kenneth, the celebration banquet is about to begin. Everyone is waiting for you. I took the cup, feeling warmth spread from my fingertips to my heart. Turning back, I looked at the bright, warm lights of the banquet hall, at the smiling faces waiting for me, and nodded. All right. Let's go. I raised my glass, offering a toast to my team, my friends, and my brand new life. Smiling sincerely. To our stars and daylight. As for the man lying on the operating table, uncertain whether he would live or die, he was just a long-deleted error code in the journey of my life. His life and death, his regret, and his endless suffering, these were his own affairs. My new life had nothing to do with him. After 8 years of marriage on her moments, my husband's secretary posted a photo of herself driving his limited edition sports car. With the caption, "What my boyfriend can't give me, my boss can." I just commented, "Don't let this affect your work," only to find myself blocked by her. Immediately, my husband called and lashed out at me without hesitation. Can't I just lend my car to Epiphany for a drive? Is it really necessary for you to send someone to confront her? Do you know she almost got into a car accident just now? She called me, sobbing in fear. How could you be so vicious? I warn you. Stop being unreasonable. He hung up the phone without letting me explain. That night, my husband's secretary drove that very car, hit me who was 2 months pregnant, and dragged me for over 10 meters. The pain left me unable to make a sound, and blood spread uncontrollably beneath me. Passers-by rushed me to the hospital for emergency treatment. Right before I was wheeled into the operating room, Epiphany sent me a photo of herself picking up a new Porsche. I knew this was Lucian's compensation for her. But this time, I didn't care anymore. I turned to the doctor beside me and spoke slowly. I don't want the baby anymore. Terminate the pregnancy. One sharp cramps in my abdomen made cold sweat break out on my forehead. When the nurses wheeled me out of the operating room, blood had almost soaked the entire hospital bed. It was at this moment that Lucian called me back. I wanted to hang up immediately, but my fingers were trembling too much from the pain to obey. Accidentally, I answered the call. The next second, his furious scolding exploded in my ear. Can't you see my messages? I told you to apologize to Epiphany. You did something so cruel, why are you playing dead now? She cried for a whole hour. I never thought you'd become like this. I've explained it to you 100 times, there's nothing between us. Do you have to be so unreasonable? Serena, you disappointed me so much. Where are you right now? I'll give you half an hour, get over here and apologize to Epiphany. A weak, bitter smile tugged at my lips. I'd naively thought he called because he noticed I'd missed the dinner party and was worried something had happened to me. But once again, he was standing up for his secretary. My broken heart sank to the bottom. I forced a faint, breathless voice from my throat. Is that all it takes to disappoint you? Then I've been utterly disappointed in you for a long time. Do I need to apologize for that? I've already given my husband to her. And she's still not satisfied? Well, then I can't help it. I was about to hang up when his enraged roar came through the line. What kind of attitude is that? Who do you think you're snapping at with that sarcasm? I can't even bear to think what our child would turn out like if you're the one raising them. If you keep being this stubborn, you'll never see the child once they're born. I'll let my parents raise them." Tears rolled uncontrollably down my cheeks. I hung up the phone abruptly. Did he even care about the child? All he cared about was his own ridiculous pride. In that moment, I suddenly felt a strange sense of gratitude toward Epiphany. If it weren't for her, I might never have mustered the courage to terminate the pregnancy. Once the child was born, Lucian and I would be tied together by that bond forever inseparable. When I was settled in the ward, I called the kind stranger who'd sent me to the hospital and transferred 500 yuan as a thank you. The anesthetic was wearing off, and my face turned pale from the pain. I curled up into a ball on the hospital bed, my gaze fixed on the IV drip, each drop falling slowly. Just like my fading love for Lucian, I hadn't paid attention to which card I used when transferring the money to the stranger. By mistake, I'd chosen the intimate payment card Lucian had given me. At midnight, I drifted off to sleep amid the pain only to be woken up by his accusatory call. "What did you spend 500 yuan on? Did you book a male celebrity at the dinner party? It was just a fight, do you really need to waste money like this?" To my drowsiness vanished at the sound of his angry yelling. I frowned, glanced at the payment interface on my phone, and said, "I picked the wrong card. I'll transfer the money back to you later." "Okay?" He barely got one word out in response before I hung up the phone cleanly. My heart was flooded with bitterness and irony. After 8 years of marriage, he could gift his secretary a Porsche without blinking an eye. Yet he was hounding me over a 500 yuan expense. I really had no reason left to hold on. I couldn't stay in the hospital for long. There was a major business dinner in 2 days that I had to attend. Right after we got married, Lucian and I had an agreement. He would handle the company's internal management and business operations, while I would represent him at external social events and networking occasions. For me, that upcoming dinner was the perfect chance to win people over. Critical for when I divorced Lucian, split the company assets with him, and started my own business. The next day, once I felt a little better, I asked the doctor for medication and checked out of the hospital. On my way to pick out gifts, I noticed Epiphany had posted a new moment the night before. In the photo, she was driving the new Porsche Lucian had bought her. After dying in the desert, only a section of the man in the passenger seat's wrist was visible, but it was enough for me to recognize him as Lucian. The Rolex on his wrist was the anniversary gift I'd given him last year. Epiphany's caption read, "Now that I'm away from you, who still treats me like a child?" The Porsche must have been badly damaged from over dying. Repair costs alone would probably exceed 500 yuan. My brows furrowed tighter, and the warmth in my eyes faded bit by bit. As expected, Lucian only ever gave without counting the cost or expecting anything in return when he was with Epiphany. 3 years ago, when I was under immense stress, I'd mentioned wanting to go for a night drive with him. But back then, he'd been too busy replying to Epiphany's messages on his phone to even glance at me. He'd said it was boring, that going for a drive was a waste of time, and that he had work to do. Now I realized, it wasn't the drive he'd found boring, it was me. Every second spent with me after his love faded had been torture for him. I closed the Moments app, went into my shopping app, cancelled the gift I'd pre-ordered for Lucian, and unfollowed the store. Barring any surprises, I'd never buy anything for him again. When I arrived at the high-end boutique where I'd reserved my formal dress, Lucian sent me a message saying he'd be attending the dinner too. I glanced at it and deleted our chat thread outright. Just looking at this man made me sick, let alone attending an event with him. I just told the shop assistant I'd come to pick up my dress when she froze, looking hesitant. After a moment, she spoke up under my questioning gaze, "Serena, didn't your husband call earlier to say you needed to change the dress size? Are you sure you're the one wearing this dress? The size? I'm afraid it won't fit." A thought crossed my mind. My brows shot up, and my expression darkened. Before I could say anything else, Lucian's voice came from behind me. "What are you doing here?" "Oh, right, you're picking up your dress? No need. I already had your dress sent home. This one can go to Epiphany. She's never been to a dinner party like this before. She needs to dress nicely for her first time." Think of it as me helping you apologize to her," he added. I turned around and came face to face with Epiphany's carcaphus grin. It was the exact same arrogant look she'd had on her face that night when she'd driven into me. She seemed convinced that I was too afraid of making Lucian angry to call the police on her. But the truth was, I'd just been too swamped with things these past 2 days to have her arrested. Her appearance, though, reminded me that now wasn't the time to tip my hand. I clenched my fists tightly, my nails digging deep into my palms. The pain brought me back to my senses. The next second, I spoke with undisguised sarcasm. She's already trying to steal my man. And now she wants to steal my dress too? Does she even have what it takes to pull off a dress worth over 1,000,000 yuan? As soon as the words left my mouth, Lucian's face turned cold. Anger simmered in his eyes. Can't you stop being unreasonable? You're pregnant, your belly's as big as a middle-aged woman's. Do you think a tight dress like this is appropriate? It's just a stupid dress, what's the big deal if you give it to Epiphany? He still didn't even know I'd had a miscarriage. Epiphany pretended to be delicate, tugging at his sleeve and speaking in a soft voice. It's okay, President Lucian. After all, I'm just a secretary. I don't deserve to attend a dinner party like this anyway. I appreciate your kindness in wanting to show me the ropes, but you should give the dress to Serena. I'm fine with it. As she spoke, tears quickly welled up in her eyes, making her look utterly pitiful. It instantly triggered Lucian's protective instinct. He turned to the shop assistant and snapped an order. Wrap it up. I'm taking it now. Fine, went on a low sigh. Give it to her, I said. I paid over 1,000,000 yuan for it. If I call the police and report it as theft, that should be enough to put her in jail for a few years. She'd better enjoy these next few days while she can. The sarcasm in my eyes was plain to see. My double-edged remark clearly flustered Epiphany. She shot me a quick glance, and tears poured down her face. I won't wear it. I won't wear it. Serena, please don't be angry. I didn't mean to upset you. I'm sorry. I'll never go to a dinner party like this again. I don't deserve it. With that, she covered her mouth and ran out of the store. Lucian grabbed the cup the assistant had handed him and slammed it onto the table. He shot me a murderous, venomous glare. Are you satisfied now? He turned and chased after Epiphany without another word. I looked at the stunned shop assistant and spoke slowly. Wrap it up. I'll give you an address to send it to. I wrote down Epiphany's home address found on Lucian's shopping app on a piece of paper and handed it to the assistant. And I picked out another dress in the store that didn't need size adjustments and placed an order before leaving. When I got back to the company, neither Lucian nor Epiphany was there, which worked out perfectly for me. I asked the finance department for a copy of the company's transaction records and sent them to my lawyer, telling him to calculate how much I was entitled to in the divorce. Then I called a friend who worked at the police station to file a report. I told him the rough details of how Epiphany had hit me with her car, dragged me, and caused my miscarriage. Then sent him the footage I'd copied from the car's dash cam. I'd had the dash cam installed back when Lucian and I were already growing apart. I'd originally thought it would capture evidence of his infidelity, never imagining it would end up being even more useful. By the time I finished all the work I had to do, it was already dark outside. The painkillers I'd taken at noon had worn off, and my abdomen started cramping again. When I stood up, a warm trickle from between my legs made my face turn pale. I swayed slightly before managing to steady myself. I hurried to the sofa, took out the medicine the doctor had prescribed from my bag, and swallowed it with water. Maybe I'd overexerted myself that day. The scrape on my arm from when Epiphany had hit me started bleeding again. I went back home, disinfected the wound, and redressed it. Then I quickly packed a suitcase with the things I wanted to take with me after the divorce. I left the suitcase by the door and collapsed onto the sofa to rest. When I unlocked my phone, I found that Epiphany had updated her moments 3 hours earlier. The location was set to the city's most upscale hotel. In the photo, the night view beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows featured the city's landmark buildings. In the reflection on the glass, 2 figures sat across from each other at a dining table, where candles, symbols of romance, burned brightly. By my count, this should have been her second to last dinner. Even though this was the hotel I'd mentioned to Lucian countless times, the one he'd never taken me to. I felt nothing as I stared at the photo. It turned out that the death of a person's heart really happens in an instant. Just as I was about to turn off my phone, Lucian opened the door and walked in. His gaze fell on me, and his eyes were unusually gentle. "Why couldn't you have been like this earlier? You had to make such a scene in public." I spoke a bit sharply today to don't take it to heart. "Epiphany received the dress you gave her. She's really happy." A sarcastic curve tugged at the corner of my lips. Unnoticed by him, I opened a message from a friend at the police station. He said he'd reviewed the evidence and it was solid. Then asked when we should make the arrest. My fingers moved slightly as I replied, "Tomorrow night." I also sent the address of the dinner hotel along with the message. Seeing that I didn't respond, Lucian might have realized his attitude over the past 2 days had been too much. A flicker of guilt crossed his eyes, and he even lowered his stance to say, "Let's go to the banquet together tomorrow night. It's been ages since we attended one as a couple. And Epiphany wants to see it too. Anyway." After he finished speaking, I nodded expressionlessly. Acting, after all, is better with a larger audience. In the past, whenever I gave him the cold shoulder, he'd only grow more stubborn. But this time, he fell silent. He sauntered upstairs, looking perfectly content, and walked into the bathroom to wash up so elated that he didn't even notice the suitcase casually placed by the door. I let out a self-deprecating laugh. As I was about to head to the guest room to rest, Lucian finished washing up and walked toward me. The lingering steam on his body, combined with his suggestive gaze, filled the air between us with a tinge of intimacy. I stood still, watching him coldly as he leaned close to my ear. Warm breath brushed against my ear, and he spoke in a hoarse voice, wife, it's so good to have you." Suddenly, the scent of Epiphany's perfume wafted into my nose. My brows furrowed sharply, and my stomach churned violently. I pushed the man off me in one motion and said coldly, "I'm not available." Then I stood up and walked into the guest room. Lucian's furious curses were shut out behind a door. "What's your problem again? Can't you let this go? I'm giving you a chance, and you're throwing it away. Do you think I even want to touch you? You're just an old hag. Who do you think you are?" On the other side of the door, I leaned my back against the wood. My body slowly slid down, growing weaker by the second. The warm voice of the young man from the past grew fainter and fainter in my ears. "Serena, we'll be together forever. I'll give you everything you want and make you the happiest girl in the world." The next day, I went to the police station to take care of some formalities, then visited a makeup artist to do my hair and makeup. When the time was right, I stood up and headed to the banquet venue. The opening speech had just ended, and the atmosphere was already buzzing. I moved through the crowd of business tycoons alone, freely talking about my plans to start my own company in the future. Meanwhile, Lucian had his arm around Epiphany, introducing her to the guests one by one. The dress she'd taken from me fit every inch of her body perfectly, making her look even more like a canary clinging to Lucian. I was in a corner of the hall, switching out my drink, when she suddenly walked up to me in her high heels. Before I could speak, she picked up her wine glass and poured the wine all over her chest. Her scream rang out, and all eyes around us instantly focused on us. "Ah! Serena, what are you doing? Didn't you already give me this dress? Why would you do this?" Epiphany's voice was thick with sobs, and tears rolled down her cheeks. The moment she finished speaking, Lucian rushed over to me from across the room. He didn't give me a single chance to explain. He swung his arm back and slapped me hard across the face. Roaring with anger, "I thought you'd changed. But you're still this crazy. If you keep acting like this, go home. You're not allowed to come to places like this ever again." I lost my balance in my high heels and stumbled sideways. I knocked into a waiter carrying a tray, and an entire tray of wine spilled all over my dress. My carefully styled hair and makeup were ruined and beyond recognition by the red wine. The cheek Lucian had hit swelled up quickly, and even my foundation couldn't hide how disheveled I looked. I grit my teeth in pain, my abdomen throbbing with cramps. But I forced myself not to make a sound. Epiphany hid behind Lucian, sobbing uncontrollably. Seeing that I didn't fight back, Lucian finally turned to comfort her. He just reached out to wipe the tears from her face when a group of police officers rushed into the door. "Excuse me. Is Ms. Epiphany here? She's a suspect in a traffic accident involving intentional harm. Please come with us." Lucian's eyes widened in shock. His face filled with disbelief. He spun around sharply, wanting to question me only to see a pool of glaring red blood spreading beneath me. The guests around us quickly stepped back, clearing a space for me to lie down. The waiter I'd knocked into turned deathly pale, thinking he was to blame for what was happening. He snapped back to his senses, jumped up, and bent down to help me up, stammering apologies and on the verge of tears. I reached out to stop him. I spoke weakly, "Help me call an ambulance." After I said that, I watched as his hands trembled so violently, he could barely hold his phone. Even so, he forced himself to dial the emergency number. He stuttered as he told them our location and described my condition. I watched his panic, and my heart was flooded with bitterness. Even a stranger could see how desperate my situation was and feel anxious for me. But my husband, the father of the child I'd been carrying, stood there in silence. His lips were pressed tightly together, and he didn't offer a single word of concern. His sharp gaze pierced through me, and his eyes clearly accused me of faking it. He'd never cared about me. So it followed that our child didn't even deserve his father's attention. The image of the man who once loved me grew blurrier and blurrier in my memory, eventually fading into Lucian's cold, indifferent face. Never before had I been so clear we could never go back. All the compromises I'd made over these 8 years had never won me a moment of his understanding. Instead, they'd fed his ambition, making him more and more greedy. Finally, heading fulfilled Leo, the last glimmer of hope I'd held for this relationship vanished completely. Lucian didn't get to voice his accusation. He looked at me with cold eyes and asked only one question: "Did you call the police?" I was in too much pain to speak. My hands clutched my stomach tightly. My dress, already soaked with red wine, was now drenched in cold sweat. I curled up into a ball, utterly disheveled. At last, Lucian lost his patience. Unable to get an answer from me, he turned to the police instead. He pulled Epiphany behind him with one hand and spoke sternly. "What's going on here? There must be some misunderstanding. She's been with me the whole time. She couldn't have done something like this. Do you have any evidence? Otherwise, you take anyone away in front of me." In stark contrast to his resolve, Epiphany behind him looked utterly panicked. Her eyes darted back and forth between me, filled with intense, unhidden hatred. But with so many people watching, she didn't dare confront me directly, afraid that her nervousness would give away the truth about that night. Her hand, which was clinging to the corner of Lucian's clothes, tight and more. Lucian noticed her search for comfort and pulled her closer to him. While the police were looking through evidence to show Lucian, Epiphany's tears spilled over, and she began sobbing pitifully in front of everyone. "Is it because I took Serena's dress? Is she holding a grudge against me? So she called the police with a false report to ruin the banquet tonight? I'm sorry, it's all my fault. I'll take the dress off right now. Can someone please beg her to let me go? If she still can't forgive me, I'll resign tonight. I promise I'll never appear in front of her again." Her veiled words reached Lucian's ears. He remembered the scene she'd caused in the store earlier, and his expression darkened. I couldn't help but laugh at how stupid the two of them were. Even now, Epiphany still thought that as long as Lucian stood by her side, she could escape legal punishment. I didn't know whether to praise Lucian for protecting her too well, or mock her for being too stupid to even be a mistress. Lucian, Hadimishin, overcome with guilt, tried every way to comfort Epiphany, but the tears on her small face just kept falling. The guests around us, who'd been watching the drama unfold, began whispering among themselves. No matter how this ended, one thing was certain: the affair was exposed. Everyone was too busy laughing at the spectacle, saying that I, the legal wife, was too petty to let things go, even going so far as to file a false police report at a time like this. They said Epiphany was dumb, with only a pretty face. Even her green tea tricks couldn't make up for her lack of intelligence. The cramping in my abdomen grew more intense. Compared to that, the burning pain in my cheek faded into numbness. Soon, went out a low sigh. The police produced the evidence along with an arrest warrant. Lucian watched as the documents were laid out in front of him, still trying to stop them. The police had run out of patience and stepped forward to take Epiphany away directly. Lucian couldn't hold back, and a confrontation broke out between him and the officers on the spot. I never would have imagined that the once gentle Lucian would clash with the police over Epiphany. Without me noticing, he'd become someone I didn't recognize at all. In the end, the police took him away too, to assist with the investigation. At last, the venue fell quiet. As soon as they were led away by the police, the ambulance arrived. I'd held on as long as I could, but my consciousness was already fading. The last image I saw before blacking out was the waiter's desperate scream, a sound that suddenly transported me back to the past. To the days when Lucian's eyes had only been for me. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying in a hospital ward. Beside the bed stood Lucian, his face twisted with suppressed anger. Hearing me wake up, he turned his head slowly. He ground his teeth, forcing his emotions under control, and snapped at me, "The baby's gone? Why didn't you tell me? I'm the baby's father, don't I have the right to know? If the hospital hadn't called me, how long were you planning to hide this from me? Why did you get rid of the baby? Have you lost your mind? Was it because of Epiphany? I've explained things to you so many times, what more do you want? It took us 8 years of marriage to have this baby. And now you've robbed me of my right to be a father. Just because of your unreasonable tantrums. Serena, don't you think you're being too selfish?" After he finished speaking, my expression turned completely cold. I never would have thought that he, the one who'd cheated, would have the nerve to accuse me of wrongdoings. I was so angry I wanted to laugh, but I didn't have the strength. I struggled for a moment, then sat up in the hospital bed. He hesitated for 2 seconds, and unusually reached out to adjust my pillow for me. A sardonic curve tugged at the corner of my lips. And when I spoke, not a trace of emotion remained in my voice. "Haven't you already been to the police station? You've also spent so long in the hospital, don't you know how we lost the baby? And now you're here to accuse me?" Lucian, having fulfilled my answer. "Is there something wrong with your brain? With an IQ like that, I don't think you should have kids either. Don't ruin an innocent life." It was the first time in 8 years I'd torn off a pretense with him. Lucian hadn't expected me to be so cold. A flicker of shock crossed his face. "What do you mean? Didn't you get rid of the baby? Then what the hell happened? Wasn't it you who's been jealous of Epiphany every day? You even picked a fight on purpose at the banquet. If you didn't do it, did the baby just lose itself somehow?" It was in that moment that I finally understood that saying. Don't try to communicate with men, they have no soul. Only empty shells of bodies. The feeling of talking to a brick wall left me physically and mentally exhausted. The side of my face that he'd slapped still throbbed faintly. I took a deep breath, my voice sharp with irritation. "Get out. I don't want to see you. My lawyer has already printed the divorce papers, you just need to sign them when the time comes. And we'll split the assets 50-50. As for the parts you gave Epiphany before, I'll sue to get back my half." He hadn't expected me to be the one to bring up divorce first. His eyes widened instantly. "Divorce? Are you crazy? Are you joking? I slaved away to build this company for so long. And you want to divorce me and take half with just one sentence? Impossible." His eyes turned crimson with anger, and his voice rose to a shout. It seemed like if I didn't back down, he'd pounce and tear me apart the next second. Suddenly, I found the past 8 years of my life laughably stupid. I closed my eyes in despair and said softly, "Get out. If you won't sign, then we'll see each other in court. Stop ruining my mood here." Rejected by me again and again. Lucian's expression darkened completely. "I'm not leaving until you give me an explanation today. First you get rid of our baby, and now you want a divorce to split my assets? Serena, you must have some young boy toy on the side. Don't you?" He looked so earnest, like he truly believed it. Despair flooded my chest, overwhelming every other feeling. I couldn't wrap my head around it. How had the warm-hearted boy I remembered turned into someone like this? Had he been pretending all along? Or was I only just waking up now? He was the one who betrayed our relationship first. Now that I was asking for separation to make space for his mistress, He still twisted the truth and turned the blame on me. After a long silence, under his hatred-filled gaze, I spoke slowly. I'm only going to say this once, so listen carefully. The night before last, your mistress drove your sports car into me. She dragged me over 10 meters on the ground. By the time I was sent to the hospital, the baby was already gone. And that story she told you about me sending people to corner her? It was all a lie. But you believed her. The night I was admitted to the hospital, I actually waited for you for a long time. I gave you so many chances that the few calls you bothered to make weren't filled with concern. They were just accusations and scoldings. In short, there wasn't a single kind word. The moment I hung up your call that night, I'd already made up my mind to divorce you. Our divorce is inevitable. And it has nothing to do with anyone else. Do you understand? The bond between us had shattered beyond repair. So much so that even when I told him the truth, he still thought I was making up lies about Epiphany out of jealousy. His first reaction was to doubt me. How is that possible? She hit you with a car? The night before last, she clearly. His gaze fell on my medical records beside the hospital bed. His words trailed off, and the confidence in his eyes faded away. The medical records clearly stated that I'd been hit by a vehicle the night before last and rushed to the hospital for surgery. Meanwhile, Epiphany, who declaimed I'd sent people to ambush her, was completely unharmed. It was only then that he finally sensed something was wrong. I watched the subtle changes in his expression, my own face filled with sarcasm. If you don't believe me, I've already sent the dash cam footage to the police. You can go ask them to see it. The light in his pupils dimmed little by little as I spoke, my voice cold and unforgiving. Finally, head in in session. His lips trembled slightly, and he whispered, I didn't mean to doubt you. I just never thought she'd do something like this. Don't get me wrong. He said he wasn't doubting me. But his earlier expression had already betrayed his true thoughts completely. Seeing I still didn't respond, he continued, even if that's the case, you could have explained it to me, right? I'm your husband. Was there anything you couldn't tell me? Did we really have to go as far as calling the police? You never used to be like this. I remember when we first met. You'd tell me every little thing to promote her. I'd even asked someone to investigate her background. But when I placed the investigation results in front of Lucian, he didn't believe a word of it. Instead, he frowned at me. He said that since he'd hired her, how he used her was none of my business, and that I had no right to interfere. That was the first time he'd fought with me because of Epiphany. I was shocked by how much he'd changed. I couldn't bring myself to believe that the man I loved so deeply could be so cold. I wasn't willing to accept it. Wasn't willing to give up. So I backed down. After that, Epiphany's power in the company grew stronger and stronger. Everyone scrambled to curry favor with her, as if she were the true mistress of the company. The company's atmosphere grew worse and worse. Instead of focusing on their work, many employees spent every day figuring out how to please Epiphany. The company's promotion system became meaningless in the face of Lucian's favoritism toward Epiphany. When I could no longer tolerate it, I reminded Lucian several times. But no matter how I phrased it, the moment Epiphany was mentioned, he dapped like someone had stepped on his tail, snarling and lashing out instantly. He'd shout that I just couldn't stand how young she was, that I resented her for being his secretary. He called me jealous, called me a bitter woman, and if I dared to say one more word, he'd immediately call me unreasonable and storm out the door. No woman could endure being humiliated like this by her husband over and over again. I had my pride. I had my dignity. So later on, I stopped mentioning Epiphany altogether. Instead, I chose a more roundabout way to fix the problems between us. But looking at all the signs now, it was easier for the problems to destroy us instead. I didn't want anything that could be taken away from me anyway. Lucian fell into silence, lost in thought. After a long while, he only told me, get plenty of rest. I'll go back to handle some company matters. Then he left the ward. I knew he still doubted me. That's why he wanted to go to the police station to verify the truth himself. His work was just an excuse. Ever since he'd met Epiphany, he'd rarely stayed at the company. Every day, under the pretense of business dinners, the two of them visited every place I'd wanted to go. I'd never had the chance to see. Every photo, every train ticket, traces of them were all over Epiphany's moments, where she flaunted and declared war on me. I was too tired to expose his lies anymore. Too tired to waste any more of my time on him. I thought that after he saw the evidence, he wouldn't refuse my divorce request anymore. That he'd never appear in front of me again. After all, our relationship had been broken for a long time. Dragging it out would only turn us into enemies. But to my surprise, when I opened my eyes the next day, the faint aroma of food wafted over from beside my hospital bed. Lucian was sitting there alone. His eyes, which looked like he hadn't slept all night, were bloodshot with exhaustion, and his gaze was filled with guilt. When he saw I was awake, he gently lowered the side table next to the bed, then brought a lunchbox over to me. His voice was full of regret when he spoke. "I'm sorry. I stayed at the police station all night and watched that video no less than 100 times. I admit I misjudged her. I never thought she'd lie to me about something like this. She never used to be like this. After all, I was the one who hired her. I admit that my judgment of her was clouded by personal feelings before. But believe it or not, I never once thought about getting a divorce. That night, I just heard her say you'd cornered her. And I got confused. We did fight a lot because of her. And I thought you." My cold gaze swept over the porridge he'd bought. I'd seen the name of that shop countless times on Epiphany's Moments. The Lucian in front of me was no longer the man I remembered. He was a Lucian who'd been shaped by Epiphany and marked with another woman's traces. In an instant, a wave of nausea almost rose up my throat. Under the covers, my hand gently brushed over my flat lower abdomen. I stayed lying on the hospital bed and spoke slowly. "You thought I'd gone completely crazy, that I'd risked everything to take revenge on her. That I wanted her dead? But it turned out to be the opposite. She was the one in a hurry to take my place. So arrogant because of your favor that she dared to hurt me." Lucian fell silent, nodding stiffly. "Is that what you think of me?" I asked. No answer came. I turned over and lay on my side, pretending to sleep with my back to him. He didn't bring up the case again either. It was the first time in 8 years we'd been so in sync. Tragically, it only happened when our relationship was already over. As my consciousness grew fuzzy, a notification sound of my phone woke me up. When I opened my eyes, I saw him sitting beside the bed, fast asleep. The exhaustion on his face was obvious even in his sleep. I took out my phone and glanced at it. It was a message from my lawyer. The division of assets was almost finalized. The two bosses I'd chatted with at the dinner party also sent messages expressing their intention to cooperate, asking me to draft a brief proposal. They even took the time to remind me to prioritize my health and discuss specific details once I adjusted well. I propped my hands behind me and slowly sat up straight, and typed a reply to confirm when I would deliver the proposal. This was my first time working independently, so I was being extremely cautious. When I was packing my things to check out of the hospital, the sound of my phone dropping to the floor woke Lucian. He slowly looked up, noticed what I was doing, and his eyes widened in surprise. "Where are you going?" "Checking out. I'll go with you." On the way to complete the discharge procedures. He carefully held me in his arms. I suppressed the nausea and disgust in my heart for the sake of saving time. I didn't want to start a fight with him. Our swaying figures overlapped under the corridor lights, and for a dazed moment, I had an illusion of returning to the passionate days of our past. Unfortunately, having fulfilled one sigh, there was no going back. The kindness he was showing me now was nothing but a last flicker of guilt. Once that guilt faded, all that would remain was indifference. Right after we finished the discharge paperwork, the police station called Lucian. I was standing too close to him and accidentally overheard part of the conversation. They said Epiphany wanted to see him before being sent to prison. Before I could step back to put some distance between us, Lucian had already refused coldly. "Just handle it as you should. She's a murderer." I'd feel disgusted even meeting her. He hung up the phone immediately. His indifference, as if the person being locked up was just an insignificant stranger. But when he turned to look at me, warmth rekindled in his eyes. "Let me take you home." I shook my head to refuse. "I've already found a new place. I'm moving today, so I won't trouble you." My lawyer has already sent the divorce agreement to your company. Whether you just sign it or come with me to complete the formalities, either way is fine. Whatever's more convenient for you. Hearing that I still insisted on divorcing him, a flicker of helplessness and frustration crossed his face. Do we really have to get divorced? Can't you give me one more chance? I took my bag from his hand, didn't spare him another glance, and walked to the roadside to hail a taxi. I thought to myself that it was time to buy a car for myself. In the past, I'd felt sorry for Lucian, thinking he worked hard to earn money, so I never bought a car in 8 years. In the end, Epiphany was the one who got to enjoy that privilege first. I got in the taxi and opened a shopping app to look for cars. Lucian didn't chase after me. He just stood there, rooted to the spot, watching me until the taxi disappeared from his sight. The moving company staff and I arrived at the residential complex almost at the same time. By nightfall, I'd already settled into my new home. After a quick cleanup, I lay down on the sofa, and only then did I clearly feel that I had completely cut ties with my past. The next day, Epiphany was sent to prison. Lucian even sent me a message about it, afraid I'd be upset. He didn't dare say more and quickly changed the subject, inviting me to watch a newly released movie, something about a Disney collaboration. He said he remembered it was the kind of thing I loved. I stared at the blinking messages on the screen and replied expressionlessly, I used to like that sort of thing. But that was 8 years ago. It's all in the past now. I was talking about the movie, but also about him. After a moment's thought, I added, are you free tomorrow? Let's go finish the divorce procedures. This time, he didn't reply until midnight with just one word, okay. Even when I held the divorce certificate in my hand, I still felt like I was in a dream. I thought we'd end up in court fighting over property division after the divorce. But he'd at least left us both with a shred of dignity. As I was about to leave, he suddenly spoke up, I'll find a way to get back the money I gave Epiphany and transfer it to you later. That car, you can use it. I kept walking forward without looking back. Soon after, I founded my own company and signed contracts for the projects with those two bosses. I was so swamped with work that I had no time to think about anything else. It wasn't until the first batch of funds was transferred to my account that I noticed Lucian had also sent me 10 million yuan, with a note saying, repaying the amount Epiphany took. In fact, I knew Epiphany had never returned any money to him. He'd made up the difference himself. But I didn't point it out. Our relationship was already gone. At the very least, I couldn't afford to lose the benefits I was entitled to. After 8 years of love, all that was left in the end was money. Somehow, that didn't sound too bad. The end.